You are listening to Your League Tennis Podcast with your host, Anthony Radonia. Anthony's an avid weekend warrior tennis player, just like you. Every week, he'll be interviewing new and exciting guests that will not only differ in experience and skill level, but also in age and physical ability. Your League Tennis Podcast is about making you a better tennis player. Whether you're a beginner or have been playing for years, in your 20s or in your 60s. Now, here is your host, Anthony Radonia.
All right, Joe.
It's quite a crowd right there.
Yeah, I know. Everyone says that. They're always surprised how big the crowd is.
I didn't know you had so many people following this podcast.
Yeah, everyone came out just to hear you tonight, Joe. So I'm happy. First of all, what's the hat? Oh, it's the La Jolla. That's the father-son one you just did.
Yeah, it was the most recent La Jolla Championships.
Oh, that's cool.
It's like 100 and something. I don't know. I think it may actually say 100 plus years.
Yeah, 1917. Wow.
They are, that's a well done tournament.
Yeah, I love La Jolla. La Jolla and then Ojai. Like, if you ever played Ojai or went?
I haven't played, but I've had, because I don't know if you knew, but I coached high school tennis at Chaparral High School, one of our high schools, and then Great Oak High School. And so I would always take my players out to Ojai and coach them, but I've never played
CIF.
Ojai. Yeah, for they have a CIF bracket there that goes right alongside the Pac-10, now Pac-12 championships.
Yeah, Pac-12.
And then they have just a regular junior open tournament at the same time too. So there's a lot of tennis up there. But yeah, my players would always enter the CIF bracket. Good tennis.
Oh, yeah. And Ojai, I want to say, is like 1890s or something when it started. Something.
Goes away.
Something in the 1800s.
Yeah.
Which is a little crazy.
Yeah.
Do me a favor, bring it a little closer to you. Because I can hear you good, but later on, like for Spotify, it's sometimes a little
How's
weird.
that?
That sounds better. Cool. Well, thank you for coming, my friend. And you brought your son. They're jamming downstairs, him and my daughter.
Yes.
Which is nice. They're playing a little guitar.
Hopefully having fun.
Oh, yeah, I hope so. That's cool. Okay, so let's get into your rating, which is always the beginning of each podcast, because obviously you're here to talk tennis. Mm-hmm. You're a 4.5 USTA rated player. And
yes,
do you
currently
know your UTR? I always ask this. Some people don't. Some people do.
Yeah, I don't. And I don't know how, this may be too much information, but how reliable it is anyway, because my oldest son, his name is the same as mine. And our results often get mixed up. And so I have some college wins on my resume, even though I've never played in college. And
nice.
He's got some wins against 50-year-old guys that he's never played as well. And some losses on both ends. So.
Yeah.
So I don't know how reliable my UTR would even be.
UTR is so crazy to me how a year ago I had no clue about it. And all the kids were always talking about it. What's his UTR? Like I'd play a tournament and like kids at the club would be like, hey, what's the guy's UTR you played? I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. So I signed up and found out I had a UTR, which I didn't know about. But it's so crazy that it changes pretty much almost every day. No joke. Mm-hmm. And it all depends on like who you played and if they beat someone or lost someone. And if you don't beat them 6-0, 6-1, if they're lower than you, your rating can actually drop if you win.
Every game matters.
Yeah, every game matters.
I kind of like the concept.
It's good.
I like the idea. And I'm sure it's been around now for years, so I'm sure they are getting all the wrinkles out of it, but it's a great concept.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you're probably, what are you? I don't want to undervalue you.
Take a guess. I know exactly what I meant, actually. I check almost every day, even though I hate UTR.
You're in the double digits.
Nah, I was.
Are you a high 9?
I'm 9.62
10
as of this morning.
Okay.
Yeah. I was just 9.9 something. I was trying to break into the 10s, and then I lost to someone recently, and it threw me down to a 9.6, which was crazy because the guy I lost to, I think, was a high 9 too. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how losing to someone who's equal to you messes you up, but I don't know.
It's a complicated formula.
Yeah, it must be. So that and Google's, what is it? Those are both heavily guarded secrets in YouTube's algorithm or something.
Yeah. Well, I would know that if my UTR was accurate, it would not be as high as yours. My guess is that I would probably max out in the high 8s.
But you haven't
in terms of
checked.
ability level. No, and I also, most of the tournaments, I would say in the last 2 years that I've played have been doubles and father-son.
Oh, okay.
And so I have not really done a lot of singles.
They do singles and
competitively.
dubs, by the way.
Yeah.
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 So it's interesting. But I think, you know how it is. We talk to kids who are all into it, and some people just care about it too much. If they're playing a UTR who's better than them, they assume they're going to lose.
Yeah.
And if they play UTR below them, they have to win or else they'll get mad.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Nothing but stress producing.
Yeah, seriously. That's interesting. So we've known each other, I don't know, since 2018, 17, maybe something around there.
Lifetimes.
Yeah, it's a few lifetimes.
Yeah.
And you're married.
I am married.
Yeah.
Happily married to my high school sweetheart. We've been together for over 25 years.
Wow.
Marriage. Over 30
When someone
years
says
together.
high school sweetheart, that literally means they dated in high school and never, and I don't know, not necessarily didn't break up, but have still been together.
Yeah. We've
Wow.
been together since we have been together.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's so awesome.
Yeah, I'm very blessed.
Same as my parents, actually.
Oh,
Yeah, my parents are 70 something now, and they've been dating since high school.
yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
What a great, I'm sure they're great models for you.
Yeah. How old are you?
52.
Wow. I've been dating since high school. That is so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, we grew up in the same town, and although we didn't go to the same high school, she went to a all Catholic girls' school or all girls Catholic school, and I went to a public school. And she's 2 years younger than me, but my brother and her were in the same class
Oh, okay.
in grade school. My brother did not go to an all girls Catholic school.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure that out. That's interesting. So you met her through your brother.
I met
Sort
her.
of friends of friends.
And our parents were friends.
Oh, and your parents were
So,
friends.
yeah.
Oh, that's
Kind
so
of that
cool.
way. And then, just to make it even more, probably less interesting, her best friend ended up marrying my brother. And so, it was
Oh
like
my
this friend
gosh.
group.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, that's so cool. That's actually really cool.
it is. It's very cool.
And so all you guys are good friends or not really?
We're, my brother and his wife were still together and very happily married. We're family, but
Yeah.
we don't live in the same town.
Oh,
So we
okay.
don't see each other as much as
Yeah.
we would like to. But yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
When did you guys get married, you and your wife?
We got married in 97.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 97. That's right.
Did you guys go to college?
I should be more sure about that. But yeah, 1997. Yeah. She went to college at San Jose State University as an aviation major. And I went to college at San Diego State University.
Aviation major. What? I've never even knew that was a thing.
Yeah. She was, I believe at the time, one of 2 females in the program.
Wow.
And she graduated as an aviation major, took a lot of math, science, and mechanic classes.
Yeah.
Ended up getting her single pilot license, but married me instead and never really used it. So
Wow.
yeah, now she teaches.
And she's teaching grade school.
She does.
Yeah. So does she ever think about flying still?
I don't think so.
No,
No.
not at all.
I mean, I'm sure she thinks about it, but
but never
she's
talks
very
about it.
happy.
Yeah. No, I'm
Very
sure
happy
she
with
is.
what she's doing.
That's so cool. I always tell a story that one of my buddies in college, he was getting his license. I don't remember if he was he had to get hours. I don't really know how it all works, but he took me up it was literally a 2-seater. We were flying 75 miles per hour in the air, and it was the scariest thing I've ever experienced in my life.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe we were going that slow. I thought all planes go 300 miles per hour or something. I have no
Probably
idea.
in a Cessna or something.
Something like that. But I want to say it was going 80. Does that sound crazy or does that sound right? Yeah.
Yeah, we just went up because I had actually never gone up with her. And we went up. One of my good friends has a friend who does a pilot license or lessons at French Valley Airport right here.
Oh, okay.
And so he, for her birthday, he said, "Hey, I'll let you guys go up with him."
Oh,
and so we went
cool.
up, and she got to take the controls. It was fun.
Oh,
Fun
that's
to
so
watch,
cool.
and yeah, it was always a passion of hers. But I think more, and it probably gets to a tennis conversation. What I've always loved about her and just love about people is actually the experience of being one of 2 females in a program that was so male dominated,
Yeah.
and what that did beyond just being a pilot, but how that kind of forms you and, how it makes you who you are and tough and how you learn how to push through things and build character. And those are things that I think, those are the things that matter. And I think it's what we have to offer. And when I say we have to offer, I mean, because of what I now do for a living, I think it's some of the really powerful pieces that organized sports and school do for people beyond just the wins and losses and beyond just being involved. It's how it sharpens and hones one's character that I think is interesting. And it's really what's drawn me to tennis more than anything else, because it's a sport that, unlike some of the other sports, you can do it with one other person. So you can keep at it and you can do it your entire life, and you can do it no matter what level you're at. I think it's one of the reasons why you were interested in this podcast, because you can talk to so many people who are so passionate about the sport and what the sport offers them, and probably never hear the same story twice. And it really doesn't matter the level you are. You're always striving and trying to get better. And it's one of the things that drew me to my wife and has always spoken to me, is how those experiences so often, and as I talk to my own kids, they either make or break you. And I think tennis has a lot of that make or break in it. And it's what I love about the sport so much.
So when we go through something personally and things break us like a lot, I mean, it happens, right? We're human. So what is it about sports that you find like so intriguing that like you could be broken, I guess, to keep using that word, and feel like, sad about a loss and things. But what is it about sports, I guess, in general, before we go into tennis, that intrigues you so much, because of that, because I actually, it's weird. I guess the thing I'm thinking about when you were talking is, I am so happy I played sports in my life. I really think it shaped me. But it's interesting because I'm not pushing my kids into it, even though I found it so valuable in my life. But it's hard as a parent because you don't want them to get hurt. You don't want them to lose, but it's also valuable that they go through these things. And so I don't know if I even have a question, but it was just the things I'm thinking about when you were talking. It was just so interesting to me because I'm always thinking about my kids when someone's talking about something like that.
Yeah.
But why are sports so valuable then? Because of that, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's they're so unpredictable. But I think, at least in my life, one of the things about sports is that makes them important is you have a goal. So there's rules, there's a common way that you engage in the behaviors or in the competition. And then because there's a common way, and then you have a goal. And most of the time that goal is to win, but sometimes as you start to play the sport more and start to understand the nuances of the sport, the goals get more complex and complicated, and they begin to become, as you play sport more often, and you begin to do it over time. I think the winning becomes part of a lot of other things that help to lead up to the winning. And so I think, going back to what you talked about kids, and I've chosen to be an educator in my life. It's what I do for a living, is one of the things that sport offers that I think is so unique is an opportunity for people to set goals and to strive to achieve those goals. And you're not always going to get the growth at the rate and or the level that you want. And so how do you react to that? How do you respond to that? And that I think is what begins to hone and shape a person in terms of who they are and how they are when they react to adversity outside of sport. And so it's such a great testing ground for how one deals with hard times and adversity. And so when you bring up your own kids and how you want them, to have fun and, see sport for all the great things that it is, which I think is so true for everyone. But I've always viewed it as that and how do you, in fact, I had this conversation with my son today, my youngest son. Oftentimes things don't go right or the way you plan them to go. And a really important piece is how do you react when it doesn't go the way you thought it was going to go? And that's the lesson that I think sport offers people better than any other endeavor that I've encountered in my life. I heard a remark the other day that it wasn't the first time I heard it, but it brought it back into my mind. I played a lot of baseball as a kid. I didn't get into tennis until later on in life. And in baseball, you are the best players in that sport fail 7 out of 10 times, they're up to bat. Yeah. And so you're failing far more often than you are succeeding when it comes to, what your goal is in terms of, getting a hit, getting on base. And so that sport becomes a sport of attrition. How do you deal with failure? Because you're failing more than you're succeeding at that metric or at that level. And that to me is one of the beauties, again, of what sport does for people. So I would just say to young kids, and I say all the time to young kids, is when we sit down and set goals, winning is going to be in there somewhere, but it's not going to be the only goal. Yeah. We're going to talk a lot more about development and character. And then again, it inevitably comes to what happens when what you thought was going to happen doesn't happen, or what happens when it gets hard. What can we build inside of you? What can we develop so that you're able to push through the difficulties?
So obviously then, if you fail, you learn from that failure. But as a parent then, are you, I don't want to say intentionally putting them in situations where they fail, but would you? Like, is that a lesson of itself? Would you put, let's say Joey, your oldest, when he was 16, would you intentionally put him against someone obviously very better than him to see how he handles the loss, or to see if he can learn something from them? Do you know what I'm saying? I guess they're two sort of different things.
Yeah.
Because I've never thought of it as intentionally putting my kid with someone who's better so they can lose intentionally. I've never thought of it that way.
So bringing up my son, and I'm outing him here, he may not like this, but when he started playing tournaments, he started playing the satellite, so not opens at the junior level. He was about 11 years old, 12 years old, and he started a little bit later. He was also one that transitioned from baseball to tennis. He played satellites, and he was 0-11 in satellite tournaments. So it took him his 12th match.
What age was this?
12 years old.
Okay.
It took him his 12th match before he actually got a victory. And he and I would talk fondly often how hard that was at the time, because he was playing people that were better than him. Yeah. As he was just learning the sport, and it was really mentally draining on him and taxing on him. And how many times we would always have this restaurant we would go to on the way back from Orange County, and a different restaurant on the way back from San Diego, because that's where the tournaments were. And we would sit at the same table, and he'd be really upset, and I'd be trying to figure out, okay, are we breaking him? Or do you stick with this? Is he able to handle this? And so I do think it's individual. It's as parents, we know our kids really well.
Yeah.
And he was able to handle it. And so after he got that first win, you know, you start to figure out what works a little bit better, and some of the things that you talk about in the sport in terms of strategy begin to become more clear as a player. But as a father, you know, I think those losses are what made him able to weather adversity in the sport when he got older and started playing in college, because things, as we know, no matter what level you play, you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to face people that you think you should be beating and you're not beating, and you're going to face situations on the court that you didn't anticipate, and maybe you're not playing your best that day. What do you do about it? And I think he has such a well to go back to as a result of those, you know, first 12 matches that he wasn't able to win, to remember that it's not always easy, but to know that if you don't give up, there's ways to solve the puzzle. And so I feel like tennis, more than any other sport, to kind of start focusing a bit on tennis, presents you as a player, regardless of your ability level. It has presented me as a player with puzzles that are fun to try to solve. Every single player that you come up against has a different thing they're trying to do, and something different that they're good at, and something that they're not quite as good at. And I view it so much as, you know, this in singles especially, it's the most fun puzzle to try to solve, because it's physical and it's mental, and it's a testament to your character, and that is a fun challenge. And so I find it to be a really fun sport to help young people work through, largely because of the combination of the mental aspects with the physical aspects of the sport, and then, you know, getting into the strategy of it all. Because when I look at mental, I'm thinking more about like the social emotional ability of just handling what is presented to you on the court. And then you have the strategy part of it, of what you're trying to do and what they're trying to do to you. And then you also just have the physical ability that the sport presents to you as well. And I think tennis is just the perfect combination of those pieces.
What other sport is sort of like this? I mean, even individual sports, it's more like playing against a field of people. Like I could think of some things like where you're sort of trying to get the highest score and kind of thing, and you're not necessarily playing one-on-one. Tennis is one-on-one, right? And you're advancing in a draw. I guess there's a lot of physical sports like boxing, karate, things like that, but most other sports aren't really like that. You know, tennis is so unique.
A lot like, and I know I've read Andre Agassi's autobiography, which was super well done, but his dad was a boxer.
Yeah.
And he often would use that comparison of boxing and tennis. And to me, it's a lot like a boxing match, or maybe boxing is like tennis as well, in that you're trying to solve a puzzle that your opponent is presenting to you, and that you have a specific amount of time within the rules of the sport in order to figure that puzzle out. And whoever figures it out first is likely going to be victorious. And it's a combination of your ability to mentally withstand what they're presenting, the strategy that you're able to employ, and how you're able to be flexible and fluid with that strategy, and just physical talent of you and the person that is across the net from you. And I think that's a lot like boxing or MMA or, as you say, karate or any of those pieces. I think those are the best probably comparisons.
Yeah. So I do want to get to that, because obviously I've always, anytime I've played doubles with you, you are a thinker. out there. And so, not to say that other people aren't, but I think you're the most, like, you are thinking the most out there when I play. Okay.
I will say it makes me chuckle because I am also I'm 5'7" and 140 pounds soaking wet. And so I'm not going to out physical anybody out there. And so it's part of figuring out when you look at it with those three aspects, at least I've always looked at it with those three aspects, what can I maximize? And I'm not generally going to be able to maximize the physical part of it.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. So you gotta do other stuff.
I got to do other stuff. The dark arts.
Yeah. Okay. So I do want to get to that. Before I do, I think I even told your son this, like, I'm happy doing this podcast, just talking with people, but it ended up being a thing where I'm like using people like to teach me things. And it's been really nice to be like, just like, I get free advice, like doing this, like, it's like a show, like, come on out, and talk with me. But it's become this thing where I get all this free advice. So I'm like learning more and more each time I do this. So I want to stay on the parenting thing just a little more. Those 12 losses, right, from your son. So I think back on this quote Kobe gave when Kobe Bryant, when he was talking about his kids, like after retirement, he obviously started teaching a lot of basketball with his daughter, specifically the one that passed away with him, right, which is very sad. And I forget who questioned him, might have been, I forget who, but Kevin Garnett, maybe, I forget, he was on this podcast himself. And Kobe said it like it was understood. He was like, hey, man, we can teach our kids to win every game. He goes, but that's not the point right now. He goes, I'm trying to teach them, and I forget how he explained it, sort of other things. And I don't remember the other stuff he was talking about. Sorry, my ears are messing up here. But it was really eye-opening to me that Kobe was like, because I am who I am, I can teach my daughter to go out and win that particular game and in that moment. But I know it's more beneficial for her to do it this other way, where I teach her for the long run versus winning this. Right. And so it made me think about that when you're talking about your son's losses. Like, how much were you just like, oh, I hope he wins? Or were you more just like happy he was learning like the hard way? Or I don't know, describe that maybe.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And it's really difficult because it's your son, it's your blood, it's somebody you care so deeply about, and you're watching them struggle. And when you're in that moment, we all can empathize with somebody who's in a struggle. And, is putting in time. Like, I would go and feed my son countless baskets of balls on hot days, where we live, it gets hot, 90 degrees, and he's putting in the work and he's trying really hard. And he's committed and he loves it. And then, you get to the match and it's another loss. You get to the next match and it's another loss. And that's hard on a parent. It's in my view, you have to be a parent to understand this. But to me, it's so much harder to watch your kid going through a difficult time than it is to go through a difficult time yourself, obviously.
Totally.
And so in no way, shape, or form was I hopeful that he was going to have these, 11 or 12 losses at the start of his tennis, taking tennis seriously, and rejoicing in that. It was every single time. It was hoping that he gets positives from a sport that I love. With that being said, it was reworking what the goals were, that the goals for me in the conversations I would have with him weren't always or ever that you get a win. They were that you go into the match with an understanding of what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, and working on understanding the person that's across from you, because you can't control that necessarily. I mean, you enter the draw, and yes, they're a certain age and they're a certain, in satellite, they're a certain level, but you don't know who they are and you show up across from them, and in that 5-minute warm-up, can you discern what their strengths are and where they're going to struggle a little bit? And can you do something in the match that's going to make their time more difficult? And so we would celebrate those small goals and those small pieces that even in those first 11 and 12 matches did not end up in a win, but they ended up in taking another step toward understanding that there's going to be success at some time. So, but to answer your question directly, no, it was an awful time.
Yeah.
But looking back on it, both of us can say that it taught him and me that sport is more than winning and losing. Winning and losing matters. It absolutely matters. But it was so much more about getting better and progressing and being able to understand where his game was kind of shaping up, where he was starting to understand how he can create patterns on the tennis court that accentuate his strengths and allow him to hit the ball where and with the stroke that he's best at, and try to keep patterns away from places that expose his weaknesses. And that for an 11, 12-year-old, kid, let alone a 52-year-old man that struggles with that when I play on a court, is the beauty of the game, but it's also the difficulty of the game. And so at the time as a parent, it was really difficult. But again, being able to have, so this is what I love about my my children, deciding that they also wanted to play sports and that they enjoyed it, is being able to celebrate the process and be in pain with them when it wasn't fast enough or when it wasn't resulting in wins or victories. And those times and those moments, I think, are what create the bonds, and that let them know that, you're always going to be there for them, that you have their best interest in mind. And that when you look back, because now he's 24, my daughter's 21, and she did soccer. Those are the best memories. And I think those are the unspoken conversations that you have as a parent and a kid, the experiences that you built together, that communicate so much more than words can communicate. And so for me as a parent, sport provided opportunities for me to show my kids that I'll always be there for them in life, in their successes and in their struggles. And we'll work together on figuring out how we can get through those struggles. And I think they both understand that we're not going to be able to avoid struggles, but that's what that's what's going to make them successful in life. So I would hope that as parents, because again, I love what I get to do as a living, and as a career. I would hope that we, as a society, we don't shy away from putting our kids into experiences that challenge them, where maybe they're not going to be successful. Maybe they're not going to be, the top 2% of the class, or they're not going to be the varsity star. But they're plugging away at it and they're working hard at it. And they're understanding how to deal with things when it doesn't pan out the way they hoped it would yet. That's what I think sport provides, and what we as adults in educators can do for kids. And when I work with parents in the educational setting, being able to have conversations like this about what the goals are and what we're trying to do, and how that often takes time. Those are, I think, really important. And I hope that, again, as a society, we don't lose sight of what the real goals are, which is creating kind, compassionate, capable, talented people that our society and our democracy needs in order to continue to thrive.
Yeah.
So I think I don't want to make this, more than it's supposed to be, but oftentimes I think we right now in society try to get the quick kind of fix to what we're after and to try to make it easier for ourselves, but also for our children. And I would, for me and my family, I've always leaned instead into places where we can learn together how to deal with struggle. Because I think that's a more valuable asset to have in life itself.
Yeah.
And sport provides that. So.
Yeah. When you were talking right now, it was making me think about running, because when I go running, I mean, the goal is obviously I need to get back home, right? I don't want to stop in the middle. But when you run, you don't have a goal. It's just like the struggle of running. And when you were talking right now, it sort of inspired me to think more about like, man, I got to get out and run more, because it's just that putting yourself through pain. There's no true like award, right? Like when you go do it yourself, you're not facing anyone. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it's just such a cool thing. The more you were talking about, the more I started just thinking about why I enjoy running, because I do. I love put on some headphones and just going. And like I love coming home just dead. Like I didn't achieve anything. No one patted me on the back. No one even knows like how long I ran. Like I don't even know if I tell my wife. I'm just tired. So it's just, I was just thinking about that when you're talking. Another thing I was thinking about when you were talking though is I've never quite agreed with participation awards or participation trophies, but the more you talked, the more maybe we don't need to give the trophy, but we do have to provide our children with that attaboy, attagirl, pat on the back and just say, you tried. And it doesn't matter if you failed or succeeded or if that's even a thing, right? Failure doesn't mean you came in second, and succeeding doesn't mean you came first. But I just started thinking about this because, it's easy to go, participation trophies, those are stupid. But the more you started talking, the more I started thinking about it. And it's like, man, I got to open up my mind to stuff like that, because maybe they're not so bad. Like, it's like, you get an award for participating, for actually stepping out of maybe your comfort zone, showing up to something. Maybe you didn't want to do it. Maybe parents made you, I don't know, but you went through it, and like, congratulations kind of thing. I've never quite thought of it that way. I don't even know if you were talking about that, but I just sort of started thinking more about it, because I'm usually poo-pooing participation awards, right? But I don't know about the award itself, but I definitely give my kids that participation award, like, that talk, like, hey, I don't care if you won. I don't care if you lost. You did something out there amazing. You put yourself in a scenario where you have the opportunity to come second and lose, and you're still here to talk about it. And that's just amazing. And that's the participation award in a way.
Yeah. I think I certainly don't want to come across as someone who is for just false praise and or praise for the sake of you showed up.
Yeah.
I think that's a longer conversation, but I'm certainly not, I don't think there's value in that. But I do think that it goes back to what goals have you set, and did you make progress toward those goals? And if progress has been made, like discernible progress, there's data to show that you set out to do this, we worked on these things, and as a result of that, you showed progress. And in that case, I do think that's commendable. I don't think the reward is a trophy. I don't think the reward is tangible. I think the reward is the journey and the experiences that were created that are now intrinsically embedded in you as a result of what you've accomplished. And that it takes maturity, obviously, to understand that. I mean, when my son was going through the struggles he was going through early
Yeah.
on by not getting victories, he at that time wasn't interested in a participation trophy.
Yeah.
That would have meant nothing to him. He
Yeah.
wouldn't have touched it. And I think most kids are like that. What at the time would have spoken to him most was to see results. And so it was a matter of changing the perspective of what those results are, to take them away from the victory or who won the match,
Yeah.
and put them more toward where was your first serve percentage? How many returns did you make? How many unforced errors did you have? How many times did you get pinned on your backhand side? How many balls did you attack? That were short balls where you're able to get 2 feet into the court. Those were the things that we began to talk about and to kind of work on, as opposed to, did you win the match or did you not win the match? It's such a binary yes or no in that one. And I believe that one of the reasons why tennis is such a amazing sport is because it's not, at the end of the day, it's about so much more than just a win or a loss.
My little one came in to wave to us. Close it, Mama.
She's amazing, by the way. She's one of the most positive people I've ever been around.
Yeah, she
Always
really is.
smiling.
Just today, I took her to get Sonic Burger up the street. It's really hot outside, so I had the airco on, but she wanted the window down. She put her arm up. She said, put on her favorite song, and she was just her head out the
enjoying it.
window.
Yeah.
Just smiling the whole time. I always call her Big Teeth because, not that she has big teeth, but she
You
just
can see
always
'em.
like,
Yeah.
always showing her teeth, always smiling. And I was like in awe. Like, I'm like, that's just, humans like that are, I don't know, just rare.
Don't take that for granted.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
you don't,
Yeah.
because that's special.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she's going to be able to lean into that so much,
Yeah.
as she grows together.
Yeah.
And I know how much you love her, and I can tell just when you talk about her.
But that's the crazy thing. I really do have a hard time finding, and that's why I'm so interested in what you're saying right now. And I would love to have this conversation a lot longer, like over a beer or whatever, continuously, forever. Because I do struggle with that. I don't want to keep her in a bubble, because she does karate, she does tennis, she does a lot of stuff. She's playing down the street, she scraped her knees, all these things, right? But it's also that thing of it's hard for me to figure out like where the protection like stops and where I let her fall, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? It's really tough for me lately. And I don't know, it's been one of those things where me, like I'm constantly thinking about it. Like I don't know if I saw her fall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is what's it called? Not a real example, but I forget, not an analogy, but whatever it is. I'm painting the picture. This isn't a real thing that's happening. But if I'm seeing her fall, should I let her fall and then explain to her people fall and what scrapes are and how we mend the scrapes, kind of thing, versus should I stop her from falling? And then she'll fall in life, obviously, right? I won't be there. But does dad need to show her, or will she find out later on her own? Like, that's the thing I'm having a real struggle with. It's really tough. I don't know.
Parenting is
Yeah.
so hard.
Yep. Where did this all come from within you? I mean, like I said, when we play, you are constantly telling me about this person doesn't like their backhand, or let's do an I formation here because it's going to mess them up, or whatever it is. And usually I'm just out there swinging. Like, I'm not really thinking.
Because you're really talented physically.
Well, then that's a problem then, right? Like,
No, I think it's an opportunity. So again, going back to, at least, I'm just Joe, 4.5 player that, was a 4.0 and got a little bit better. I'm no expert in any of this, but for me, and what's always worked for me, is I've always looked at tennis in particular, again, at those three aspects of the how you handle emotionally what's going on the court, and the challenges, the puzzles that are presented to you. What strategies can be employed, I think, is the second piece. So that's another mental part of the game, but it's not the emotional part. It's the strategy part. And then just the physicality of the game itself. How well do you move? How proficient are your strokes? What breaks down faster? Those parts that physically you can improve. But I don't know how many people really think deeply about the first two. And so for me, I don't, is it a problem that you, Tony, are physically gifted? Your eye-hand coordination is really good. You move really well on the court. You're able to reproduce the strokes that work for you consistently, and your timing's really good. And so as a result of all those things, you maximize that piece. Can you get better physically? Absolutely. Yeah. You're also getting older. Yeah. So where can you maximize some of the other parts of your game? You can probably maximize emotionally you're pretty good on the court, but that strategy part. Yes. And maybe that's what, is an area where you can even improve your game more and potentially faster, is by looking specifically at that part. So I've just always, and largely because of what I've decided to do for my life, is I always look at what are the rules of the contest or whatever it is that you're playing, and what's required in order to do it well, and then breaking it down and just really thinking in a way that breaks it down, and then so that it can be worked on. And again, I think for me, that comes in large part from the fact that I'm just not physical. And so and what I mean by that is I'm not big. I'm not necessarily really, really fast. Yeah. I'm not strong necessarily, in terms of when you're matched up against one other opponent. And so I've had to look at things a little bit differently in order to be able to even compete at a level that I would like to. And so I don't think that's necessarily a problem. I think I'm
just not maximizing what I guess my potential then.
Maybe.
Because you're right. I see people that are top in the world in their sport as, I hate when people say, oh, they're so talented. And obviously they are, right? We talk about if we talk about basketball, because I think basketball is one of those sports where talent does get you a long way. Like you can pick up a basketball and sort of be good pretty quickly. Obviously won't be great, but it's one of those things where talent sometimes wins out more. But when you're at that high level, you need the 100% talent, but you also need, without hard work, who cares? Sure. No one would know your name, kind of thing. And so, but in tennis, hard work, I'm obviously working hard. I'm obviously caring about my craft kind of thing. But for some reason, when I get on the match, I don't think about the opponent. I'm just thinking about myself. Mm-hmm. So when Adam was here in your seat, he said the same thing as you, which was during that 5-minute warm-up, he's watching them. And I'll be honest with you, Joe, and I don't know if this sounds crazy to you. Mm-hmm. Before Adam said that, I've never once in my whole life tried to figure out their strengths and weaknesses during the 5-minute warm-up. Mm-hmm. 0 times I've done it because I was always worried about myself. I was like, get your forehand stroke good, feel good on your backhand, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So I must be missing a big component of, possibly winning. You know what I mean? If I'm not thinking about their weaknesses.
Yeah, for whatever reason, of late, I've been thinking about this for the sport of tennis. And I think it's because I've hit kind of a lull in my own game, in my own progression. For me, it's thinking about understanding your game first and having a really clear understanding of what you are good at in the sport. What are your strengths? And I mean, I go to a point of listing, literally formalizing it. And for me, formalizing means we're writing it down. And so it exists now, tangibly. These are the things that I'm good at. And so what do we base that on? what makes you believe you're good at those things, and that kind of reflection, because you can do it on your own. And I always find it better if you're able to talk to somebody, about it. But what are you good at? So if these are the pieces that you're good at, how do you make sure that you can be consistently good at them? And when it's time to play in a competition, that they're going to be there for you. You can rely on them, that it's not that, hey, on Tuesday, my forehand was amazing. And on Wednesday, I couldn't find my forehand. And on Thursday, it was pretty good. And then on Friday, I couldn't find it again. It's that I have this base that I can always rely on, that I know these are the things I can go to. So when times get hard, I know I at least have this base. Sometimes the other player is trying to solve the same problems you're trying to solve. And so they can sometimes figure out ways to chip into your base, but something that you know about yourself that's great. And I think that's one of the things you're really good at, is I think you know yourself really well, and the parts of your game that you can rely on. And it's pretty, you're a good player. And so there's a lot that you have in there in your base. But once you have that, then I think you think about how you understand your opponent better. And in a sport like tennis, you don't have a lot of time to understand it. And so you try to get as much information as you possibly can, at least for me, in that 5-minute warm-up. You may know a little bit about the player because you've played them before, or you've heard about them, or you've seen their results. But that 5-minute warm-up would then be, to me, invaluable if you can rely on your base and what you already know you do well. Then for me, the whole 5 minutes is all about, I'm just collecting information on what it seems like you like, where you seem to flatten the ball out more, where you seem to hit the ball harder, where, like, a lot of people at the level I play at, they tend to, in warm-up, favor the shot they like the most. And so, if it's typically a forehand, if you hit balls to their backhand side, they're literally running around them and hitting the forehand. And it may be that they're just trying to warm that up, but it typically is just kind of this involuntary thing that okay, that's the shot they like the most. And then also giving them a few different balls. What do they do when the ball bounces above their chest? What do they do when the ball's low?
And you're doing this in the 5-minute warm-up.
Just like I'm not just going to give you the same ball. I want to see what you do when there's a low ball. I want to see what you do when you're pinned a little bit deeper, because
this is really tripping me out. I've never done any of these things.
Those are the pieces that, as the match starts, you can begin to rely on. And again, I want to say I'm no expert at any of this. But because I can't rely on I don't have the physical gifts you have. What I have learned in my life of sport, that started with baseball, is how do I, like, for me, it was when I graduated high school, I was 5 foot to 97 pounds. That's graduating from high school.
97.
I was the smallest kid in school. I was the kid in high school that wore the backpack, and all you saw was 2 legs sticking out of the bottom of the backpack. Like, really small kid, but I loved sports, and I had to figure out ways to be able to play against people that were way bigger, way stronger than me. So for me, it was always maximizing the strengths that I had. And so that's why I loved tennis so much once I started to play it, is that, this is like, it's like a puzzle.
Yeah.
Like, the mental part matters. And that game, that inside game, I can, while this person's stronger than me, hits the ball harder than me, moves faster than me, there are some things I can do that he doesn't like that actually equalize us. And if I can set up patterns during the match that allows me, especially during the important points, that allows me to get into those patterns, that gives him balls more often that he doesn't like, or in places on the court that he doesn't like to be, and me places that I like to be, I'm going to win more of those points, or at least that's the idea. And if I don't,
you're the casino. You just want a small little edge.
Just the advantage.
Just a little edge.
Because you have the edge on the physical side. And that's why I wouldn't say that, like, it's a problem for you.
Yeah.
You're maximizing what you have. I'm trying to maximize what I have. And that's what's beautiful about, one of the things that's beautiful about tennis is we approach it differently.
Yeah.
And you see it on the pro tour all the time, different body types, different
Yeah.
people that approach it differently, but they're always, I mean, they hire whole teams around them to accentuate their strengths and try to minimize their weakness.
If you were able, somehow physically able to get stronger, to put on 50 pounds of muscle, etc., or if I was able to get smarter,
right,
or think about the mental side more, we would be a more complete player, obviously. It's so easy, but just saying it out loud is sort of like, of course, but then why don't I?
Yeah,
it was just sort of interesting.
Because you're a dad and a husband and you have a job, you're a lawyer. And so, and I don't want that to sound like an excuse.
Yeah.
You like to run because we do other things.
Yeah.
You know, the people that, I've talked to people in the sport of tennis that have, and I even at a certain time, at a certain level, which is a lower level, said, hey, I'm going to for a year, I'm going to be all in. I'm throwing all my chips in. Not to say I'm quitting my job, I'm quitting being a dad, I'm quitting being a husband, but my free time, I'm going to put in the hours every week to just see how good can I get at this level. And it
paid off.
Get better.
Yeah.
It pays off.
Yeah.
But that's like we're not in the sport, you and me, as a career.
Yeah.
We're putting our time elsewhere.
Yeah.
And so I think part of, the conversation, what I like about this podcast a little bit is it's for parts of it. And for me, this conversation, the things that interest me most are the conversations with people who just love the sport and are trying to get better. Mm-hmm. But they can't put in 40 hours a week or even 20 hours a week playing it because we have other commitments that we're doing. But when we're playing it, we want to figure out how to continually maximize our abilities and continue to grow in the game because it's so fun. Yeah. And so that's what I like about your podcast. It's what I like about the sport itself and why I had brought it up earlier, why I was so excited that my oldest son and now my youngest son play the sport is because it's a sport that even if you, as you get older and like me, I never was physical, but now I don't recover the way I used to. Yeah. Like for me, I play less tournaments down singles, especially because it's hard for me to play 2 grueling singles matches in a row, 2 days in a row. And sometimes you got to play them twice in one day. And my body just doesn't respond that way anymore. And so, you're getting older, but I can still go out and have fun Saturday morning playing doubles or play a singles match on a Monday night. I could still have a good time. Yeah. But the goals are different.
Anytime I played an open where they make you play same day, first day, two matches, the second match has been a total waste. I'm mentally trying, but nothing's working. It's like, why aren't these thighs doing what they're supposed to do?
Well, you're 40-something years old, and you're likely playing against people that are 30 or 20. Yeah. And they already have the physical advantage.
Yeah, that's true.
And so that gets back to remembering those other components. Yeah. And are there things in those other components that maybe you can begin to maximize a little bit? Because you may be able to, in that first match, still get the win, but not play the physical grueling type of match if you figure out a little bit sooner maybe how to win more points or create patterns that will allow you to win points without such a physical grind. Because you play as good as you are. I think you play a brand of tennis where you like to hit a lot of balls. Like that's just the way that I see you. You're very consistent. You can flatten balls out. You can hit winners. You could do a lot on the court. For a person like me, when like my favorite matches, the matches where I tend to be most successful against people that are at my level, are like 3 hours long. They're long, grueling. We're hitting 20, 30 shots per point. Because I just love to stand just beyond the baseline and spin a lot of balls in. And there's just that thing about I am going to outlast you. Yeah. And that's part of the physical and mental part that suits my game best, at least right now, and as I have been playing tennis. But for you, I think you hit a lot of balls. If you employed the mental side of it, you may be able to win that first match in an open and have more in the tank to be able to also then come back in the second match.
Or the second match, be willing to use strategy versus just physicality, because I've been very upset. I've come home, won my first match, lost my second match, and I've been so upset, like, at my body. And like, oh, I need to lose weight. I need to run more. I need to do this. And it was that, but it's also, now that we're talking, it's the other stuff too that I never even thought of. I never thought I need to change my game because I'm tired. I just went out and tried to do the same exact thing, but I was tired and I couldn't. Right? So yeah, I gotta start using my brain, Joe.
And you're playing against guys that they're not going to get tired.
Not getting tired. Just out of college, they're still playing. They're trying to accomplish things in their life with tennis.
Yeah.
You know, they have a tennis goal. And like you said, we're just trying to be out there and have fun. And yeah, so it's interesting. So, man, we've already been talking for an hour, Joe. I don't want to end though, but tell me, was there anything that started all this with you where you said it was about your size or whatever in high school, but was it that? Like, were you always just this way, like trying to figure things out? Like, what was it that sort of started you down that path of trying to be more of the thinker, I guess?
I think it's
and do you do other things? Like, is chess, like, do you play cards? Like, do you read? Like, I don't know, what's some other stuff, I guess, that is like this?
Yeah, I love to read. I don't read as much as I would like to. I am, so I guess I would answer that question by it. A lot of it would be my parents, which is so much of us. You know, we are our parents. And I have a mom that is a really, really, really hard worker and very type A and a perfectionist. And so I grew up with that being modeled for me. And there was nothing there was no problem that couldn't be solved. And so in adversity, when I was growing up and my family was faced with difficult times, I would see my mom modeling for me, this is a hard one, but let's sit down together and figure out how we're going to solve it. And so that was in me from a very young age. And then my dad, who's very different than me, he's a brute. He was a tank driver in the Marines and a police officer, and just very physical. His legs are like tree trunks. He's built very differently than I am.
He's still alive or no? Oh, he is.
Yeah. And
where was he a police officer?
Los Angeles,
Oh,
LAPD.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
And he modeled for me this idea of you can always out physical people, which I knew I couldn't, and you can always outlast and outwork others. And so he instilled in me the importance of, from his military background, when you say you're going to do something or when you commit to do something, the worst thing that can happen is you don't do it. The worst thing that can happen is not that you lose or you fail, because as long as you give your best at what you said you were going to do, you didn't lose and you didn't fail. And that he showed me every single day with adversity that we had as I was growing up. And so those two pieces were instilled in me, and I think I take those onto the tennis court with me all the time.
Yeah.
And I think it also is why, to answer your question about, like, do you play chess? Do you do these other things? What I do, I'm just a workaholic. I just love my job and I love to work. And that's where, like, even when I talk here, I probably referenced being an educator a couple times because I just, once I commit to something and I make a commitment that you're going to entrust your kids with me or with the organization that I work with, then you're going to get 120% what we do to make it the best possible experience it can be. And that translates, I think, to the tennis court and to this idea that there's more than just the physical piece to it. There's also the mental piece, and there's also the how hard you work at it piece, and then the emotional side, which I know we've talked for an hour and we're done, but I think it's a really important and fun conversation to have within tennis that hopefully we get to keep having off air around the mental side and how you use the warm up and how somebody like me who doesn't have the physical gifts can go far in a tournament simply by engaging your brain. There's a part in that for tennis.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting, though. I might be taking away the wrong thing from this, so you tell me if I'm wrong. But if we're talking about sort of physical, mental, and the hard work, interestingly enough, what I'm coming out of this with is I can control the hard work. Mm-hmm. So I can't always control the mental side. Maybe I'm not the smartest. I'm not always the most physical or the biggest or whatever. I guess I can control that too with hard work. But I think, like you were saying, I think it's something it reminds me of something my dad used to tell me too but just outwork them and you're probably going to be better than 90% of the people out there because they're not working as hard. Mm-hmm. And so he always said this thing like that, which is just work as hard as you can and you'll sort of rise to the top just because of that. You won't be the smartest. You won't be the strongest, but outwork everyone. And so when you were talking about I was coming away with that. And obviously I need to remember the mental side, the physical side, but the hard work stuff for me is like so valuable. When you were saying it, just reminded me of stuff my dad used to tell me too.
Yeah. And we will never escape our parents, but I also think maximizing the area that you're best at, which I think you do such a great job at, is great. And I mean, always when we talk, it seems like you're always searching for like that next piece that's going to like elevate your game. And sometimes I think you just kind of hit on a piece that's so important is also leaning into and lingering or settling in on just enjoying the journey and what you have, and how you're employing that or using that right now, I think is great. It's hard, I think, to be really thoughtful, strategic, working hard and talented while you have all the level of commitments that we have as well. And so sometimes that all of a sudden makes it not fun. And that's the piece that I think is really important. Like, I think to leave with is the coolest thing I think that I enjoy about our relationship is we both love to play tennis. And as long as tennis is still fun, then then I think we're winning.
No, you're right. That's why I so want someone our age, 40s, 50s, to just win an Open. Like, to me, that would be the greatest thing. I'll probably try to write a documentary about them or something. That would be the greatest thing in the world for me. I don't know, just to see, like, they put in all the hard work, they're old, they're falling apart, and they just somehow beat all the young kids.
Maybe Roger Federer will come back.
Yeah, maybe, huh? I mean, what is Federer? Only low 40s probably, right?
Yeah, ancient for tennis.
Yeah, ancient for tennis, 42.
At that level.
Yeah.
But,
Before we get off, I give everyone a gift. So I went out and bought this. What I wanted us to do was open it. You take them all. But I know you're a big soccer fan. So I went out and bought Topps Chrome Soccer for us.
Nice.
So I just went to this local card shop. I'm like, hey, give me the latest and greatest soccer packs. So let's open them. I won't know anyone's name besides Messi, I guess. And who's the other one? Ronaldo.
Right,
yeah.
you got to know Ronaldo.
Yeah, I know those two. So I'll know those, but
Can you name one American soccer player?
I can't.
Wow.
Give me one.
Wow.
Give me one.
Like maybe like a retired one
Wait.
that also plays tennis in our area?
Oh, what was his name?
Can't even do that.
Oh man, he plays for San Diego teams. What was his name again?
Landon Donovan.
Landon Donovan, that's right. Okay, so I got Steven Bergwijn. See, I don't even, and the other crazy part is I don't even know these teams. Ajax Amsterdam, is that a team? Champions League. Okay, so this must be Champions League cards. And I never even understood that.
Really, really nice cards.
Yeah, they call them chrome and they come out really beautiful. Joa Felix, tell me if there's anyone good here.
Joao
I'm sorry,
Felix.
Joao Felix. Josip Stanisic. It says future star, so that might be a rookie card.
He's a youngster, yeah.
Yeah, something to hold on to. Oh, here's a colored one. These ones are usually the numbered ones. This is 126 out of 199, so they only made 199 of these.
Oh,
Neymar Jr.
Yeah, you got Neymar.
Is he good?
You don't know who Neymar
No,
is?
he's amazing.
Brazilian.
Let's show Neymar. Oh, okay. Oh, I recognize the face for sure. I recognize his face for sure.
Yeah, he's
That
he's
might
special.
be a good one. So you might have got a good card here. This might
special.
This might be.
I know
valuable.
that's high level.
So what did you get? Anyone good?
The one that's probably most known, yeah, definitely, is Pedri. He plays for FC Barcelona.
Oh, let me see that. Okay. Oh, that's a nice one too. But
Spanish guy.
that might be just the base card. So you don't collect cards, but nowadays they make base cards and then they make short numbered cards in different colors and
all that
everyone's chasing those. So this is probably still an amazing guy, but the card's probably not worth that much, but still beautiful.
Yeah,
Beautiful
but
card.
he's a really good soccer player.
Oh, really? Yeah, who cares then?
Yeah. That's what
See, remember when we were kids, we would just collect cards because we liked them, And now
so awesome.
it's sort of sad cards. Like it's like the lotto. You're just chasing this one card. Like they make, see that one was out of 199.
Yeah.
They'll make them out of one. And it'll say 1 of 1 on the back. And that's all people care about. They don't care who it is. Nope. That's
so
what
one
they
of
do.
one is special.
Oh, heck yeah. They'll make it gold and all this stuff. And
Do you have any one of ones?
no, I have no 1-on-1s. No.
Okay.
But the best card I have is behind you, some Carlos cards. I have some good ones.
Yeah, my son has told me about your Carlos collection.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but
What a player.
yeah, but well, this was my thank you to you, Joe. Thank you so much, my friend, for coming. Oh yeah, that fell out. Shoot.
I knocked it out.
Yeah,
Thank you, Tony.
but of course,
I
that,
appreciate our friendship.
that was so fun. No, me too. And like I told your son, like I really value your friendship. You and Keith really, and Scott were the real 3 guys who originally just made me love Murrieta Tennis Club because I just enjoyed your guys' friendship so much, and you guys similar ages, obviously, but just to me, have always sort of been mentors because of you guys always thought of the game differently, and I just really enjoyed that. So I thank you, my friend.
Appreciate
thank you for coming.
Yeah. How do we get through an hour of tennis conversation without bringing up Keith or Scott?
Yeah, I know. Or Tom.
Well,
I had to say Tom's name right before we get off. Yeah. I say every podcast I talk about Tom and ice cream.
Well
so
done.
that was my mention, Tom and ice cream at the end. Thanks,
Thank you,
Joe.
John.
All right, man. Thanks.